Okay, welcome to a bonus video I'm going to do on kind of a review on percentages. I'm going to call it video part of session 4. I'm going to call it video session 4 part E, even though I think in part D I said that I'd finish it there. So this is an extra one. You should get an email from me explaining you don't have to watch this, but only if you feel like you're a little bit rusty on percentages. So here's what's happened. I've last semester. So as I'm stating this, it's February 2021. Last semester, I noticed quite a surprisingly large fraction, not 50%, but above 20% of students seem to be missing some basic questions on percentages. And it occurred to me, first I was flabbergasted how that students could miss these things, but then it occurred that it may be something like the way my grandfather would have viewed me um, when I was 20 years old. And said, "What? You don't know how to drive a horse and buggy? Everyone should know how to do that." Many of you, I think, are relying on your smartphones. You're not like me. I learned percentages when smartphones didn't exist. In fact, calculators were still kind of expensive. So, in third or fourth or fifth grade, when we learned percentages, we weren't really using calculators, and we definitely weren't allowed them to use them on exams. I think many of you are when you're in high school, so you get rusty on these things. Regardless, even though that may be an excuse, the new technology allows us to understand percentages. Don't make it a crutch. You gotta understand some basic notions of percentages. Otherwise, you're going to have 40, 50, 60-year-old employers who are just going to think, oh, this person's just not smart. So, even though people of your generation would say, oh, no one needs to know percentages. You'll always have your smartphone nearby. Older people don't quite agree with that. So, because some of those people are going to be potentially hiring you, you gotta understand percentages and you gotta be able to do them in your head. Okay. Now, here's what's going on. So, as I speak, it's February 2021. I'm still teaching this course online. I'm feeling this maybe online in the future. When it's an online course and the exams are done online, so many of you are going to have to be doing your exam in front of a computer using some sort of software like Respondus or something else that has a camera on you, not disallowing you to access your cell phone. Okay, now the problem is it's pretty easy for students to cheat. At least as I speak, the software hasn't developed a way to have a 360 view camera. So as it is, we only see 180 view of the half the room. So a student can just put up the cell phone like I'm doing now. It's like I've got a hand right to the side of my computer, and I could be looking at a cell phone like right now, and just doing that. You wouldn't know. To minimize that chance, when I and other professors are doing it, we're disallowing things like scratch paper or calculators on an exam. And the reason is because it's too easy to look to the side. Okay, so sorry, because the technology hasn't allowed these 360 view, things like that. We've got to do things like disallow a calculator, disallow a cell phone, which means you can't use them to calculate percentages on an exam. So that means you got to understand how to do some basic percentages. Now, the good news, if it's an exam, I'm not going to make it overly hard. Okay, if you got to calculate a percentage, it's going to be a pretty easy percentage. Okay, but I've noticed some students had trouble even with the very easy percentages. So that's what the point of this video is. I'm going to give some tips on how to calculate the very easy percentages. Okay, first of all, you got to know 50%. You got to be comfortable with that. So if I say change in price, often we use the Greek letter delta P. So if I say change in price is let's see, wait, $6 to $9. Okay, the amount of change is $3. Okay, so change in price, and so then the percent change just equals 3 divided by 6. And you've got to be comfortable with that. I'm not sure how to do this. This is like fifth grade math. You got to understand 3 divided by 6 is 1/2. Okay, you just got to be comfortable with that. I think if you can't understand that, it's not clear. You should be in college even. Okay, you got to understand things when you divide by 2. Be comfortable with things when something's half of something else. So 3 is half of 6. That's half. That's always 50%. You just gotta understand that. So, and then if I have like changing quantity, say the units are, say, firm changes from, say it's a gasoline maker, 80,000 gallons to 40,000 gallons. Change equals negative 40,000, drops, and so the percent change just equals negative 40,000 divided by 80,000. And you just gotta be comfortable with knowing that's about half. 40,000 divided by 80,000, that's half, but it's a negative number. So that here again, that's negative 50%. And then, so if I asked you that, this was an elasticity question on an exam, I would say something like, suppose the price changed from $6 to $9, and then suppose that once that happened, say it's at a particular gas station, the quantity demanded at that gas station went from 80,000 to 40,000. Okay, you got to be able to do in your head, say this is going to be the price. The quantity increase is negative 50%. The price increase was 50%. You got to remember elasticity equals, this is another thing you need to memorize. The quantity, change in quantities in the numerator, change in price is in the denominator. Well, in this case, they're the same, 50%. So, but it'd be negative 50 divided by 50. So that's going to be negative 1. You got to be able to do something like that in your head. Okay, so that is the first thing to know. Make sure you are comfortable when things increase by half or decrease by half. Have a good familiarity with those cases, and that's an increase or decrease by 50%. Okay, you have to know that. Okay, next thing. Be comfortable with changes in 10%. Okay, so now all of us have gone to a restaurant. You want to pay a tip. Sometimes say it's 15%, say it's 20%. Here's a good way to do it. Just say, what would be a 10% tip? Okay, now you have to remember this rule. If it's a 10% tip, you just got to move the decimal point. Okay, so remember that. Okay, so remember, if the bill is $29.64, what's 10% of that? You got to remember 10% is smaller than the original amount. Okay, if you're wondering which way I move the decimal, to the right or to the left, well, if I moved it to the right, that would mean 10% is $296. Wait, that can't be, because the bill is $29. 10% of the bill is going to be less. That's what happens when you move the decimal point to the left, and so 10% of $29.64 equals $2.96.4 or $2.964. Okay, that's 10%. You move the decimal point to the left. Okay, so if you're in a restaurant, I want you to be able to do this. You would say, okay, 10% of the bill, it's $2.96. That's about $3. Okay. You'd say 10% is about $3. So 20% would be about $6. Okay. So if I want to leave a 20% tip, $6. If I want to leave 15% tip, that would be in between 10% and 20%. So it'd be in between $3 and $6, about $4.50. Okay. You should be able to do that. So if you are calculating tips on your smartphone, from now on, at least this semester, start doing it in your head. Get in practice for the exam. You got to be able to do these very simple percentages. Okay, and you should be comfortable with how to calculate 10% of something. And remember, the secret is just move the decimal point. Okay, so as an example. Let's see. Well, so let me give one example. Suppose that the price was $6,000, and so I asked you. Suppose the price increases by 20%. Could you calculate that in your head? Well, the way to do it is say, well, I can do 10%, easy. Okay, that's just you move the decimal point. So 10% of 6,000 is 600, okay? 20% is double that, so double 600 be 1,200, okay? So 1,200 would be 20% of $6,000, okay? Got to remember that, okay? So, given that rule, okay, how to do 10%, and you remember if you need 20%, you just double that. I might ask 30%, remember just triple the 10% case. Okay, if you remember those, okay, you should be fine on the exam. Okay, so here's an example. Suppose I told you that price changed from $20 to $22. Okay. Suppose it's a cheap tennis racket or something. Okay. And then suppose I told you that when this happened, quantity demanded changed from 3 million to 3.6 million. Okay. What is the elasticity of demand? Okay. The answer is, okay, now you have to memorize this from the elasticity part. So just knowing elasticity. So elasticity just equals percent change in quantity. And you just have to memorize that. Quantity goes in the numerator. Okay. I'm not sure any better way to remember that. Quantity goes in the numerator. Percent change in price goes in the denominator. Okay, now we've got to do our math calculations. I want you to be able to do this in your head. Okay, what's the change in quantity? It goes from the absolute change in quantity, not the percentage change, is 3 million to 3.6 million. Okay, what would be a 10% change? Well, you'd move the decimal over. So if it was 3.0, you move the decimal over here. So the 10% change would be 0.3 million. 10% of 3 million is 0.3. So what's 20%? It's 2 times that. So 0.6 would be a 20% change, and that's what we've got. So it goes from 3 million to 3.6 million. That's a 0.6 increase. So that's a 20% change. Okay. So percent change in quantity equals 20%. Okay. And you know what? I did this wrong. If we remember the law of demand, when price goes up, quantity goes down. I probably should have reversed these numbers. I should have said it goes from, you know what, if this would have been an exam, I would have said something like goes from 3.0 million to 2.4 million. I would have said it goes down. The key is it goes down by 0.6 million from our baseline of 3.0 million. Here again, 0.6 divided by 3, that's 20% change. Okay, but it's actually a negative 20% change. Okay, now I told you though, we economists, we professional economists, those of us with PhDs who've been teaching for over 20 years, we often forget about the negative sign. So if you did that on an exam, at most I would take off 1 point. I'm probably not going to take off any. Okay, but anyway, if we remember the negative sign, negative 20%. Okay, what's the percent change in price? It goes from 20 to 22. The absolute change is $2. Okay, $2 divided by 20, that's 10% change. Okay, so 10%. So the answer is negative 2. 20% divided by 10%, negative 2. Okay, so once again, when I tell you though on the exam you can't use a calculator, and guys, oh my gosh, oh, I'm freezing up, getting anxious. Oh, what do I do? What do? It's not going to be too hard of math. Given that you can't use a calculator, I'm going to make sure that the math is easy, and it would be a problem something like this. Okay, but I think there may be some of you who are not comfortable with this. You have been using those smartphones as a crutch, just like my granddad told me, you've been using that automobile as a crutch. What if you have to use the horse and buggy again? Well, okay, turns out I didn't, but maybe, there could be some pandemic like the coronavirus where you're going to have to take all your tests online and you can't use calculators. Okay, if my granddad had said something like that, he'd be right. That's where we are, and you can't use your smartphones on the exam, so you got to go back and be familiar with how to calculate percentages. Okay, so that's my video. Okay, my review of some math that you should have learned, but I think a lot of you are not because of those darn smartphones. Okay, so if you're still unsure, email me. Look online. I'm sure there's lots of places where you can get yourself some practice on percentages, but you got to understand at least a basic understanding and a basic familiarity with percentages for the exam. Okay, so that was 4E. See you in the next video.